Ken Gutman, Superintendent, Walled Lake Consolidated Schools. Thank you for joining us today on the MegaCast.
Good morning. Thanks for having me once again.
Well, it's good to have you here. And you know what? Pretty good day. Stay-at-home order has been lifted. We had a pretty good day yesterday during this tumultuous time with protests and rioting going on around our country. I think yesterday, and we'll get into your issues in a minute, but I'd like your thoughts. I think we can safely say that Michigan and Detroit and Troy set the example for the country. Police officers get down on knees with protesters, and a 16-year-old kid, and I know you know all about 16-year-olds that are amazing because you see a lot of them every day, Ken Gutman. A 16-year-old does what nobody could do and stops the protests in Detroit. It was a beautiful day, Ken Gutman. What do you think?
It was a beautiful day, and that was a beautiful moment, and my hat's off to that 16-year-old. Look, the kids are going to have to lead us out of that, and that's why we spend so much time on diversity and equity and inclusion and social justice in the Walled Lake schools, and we still have a lot of work to do. Look, we have a lot of work to do as a nation, but if you want to look at a great day and look at the way it should be done, there were some great examples locally, and it was heartening.
Well, it was, and as we said just a couple of moments ago, I don't know if you could hear, but as good as that news was, it was so depressing to watch the news coverage from Washington, D.C., but more particular from New York and the West Coast, where there's just a tremendous amount of looting. But at least now we can see the difference between the good guys and the bad guys. And there are a lot of really good people, and it is multicultural. This is not just the African-American community protesting. It's all of America. And Ken Gutman, you're right. It's awful lot of young people that seem to be leading the way. And I like what you just said. The young people will lead us out of this mess. Don't you think?
Well, they'll have to, because we haven't gotten it right as adults. And you look across our country, we're not where we should be. I mean, the Civil War was how long ago, and we still haven't reconstructed fully, right? So we have a long way to go. And so the work we do in the school district and other local districts do in terms of diversity and equity and inclusion, that's serious work, and our children get it. I can tell you my own kids get it. And it's heartening, again, to overuse the word, but it will be the children who lead us.
Ken Gutman, the superintendent of the Walled Lake Consolidated Schools, joining us here on the MegaCast. Dave Scott, along with Tyler Keefe, in our studios. Ken, let's start with the money issues, because money is going to be a big deal as we try to recover as individuals, as businesses, as municipalities, and for school districts. And yesterday, we had folks on from the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments, and it opened my eyes to the depth of the problem. I was only thinking about the challenges associated with next year's school budget, but this year's school budget doesn't end until July. Are you concerned about the money that you may not get from the state of Michigan before your fiscal year ends, and what impact that might have?
Sure. So I'm sincerely concerned about a proration, considering our bills are paid, right? We balance our budget. We projected a budget a year ago. We've honored that budget. We've been fiscally conservative throughout the course of the year. To say that our last couple of checks from the state, where our fiscal year ends June 30th, will not potentially be there, or will be significantly less when we still have bills to pay, that's a huge concern. It's a huge, huge concern. So I'm hoping we can get through this year. As far as next year, I would love to see our state pass a budget by June 30th. We have to. So, in terms of projecting next year's budget, we have no information except that it'll be bad. And not having our numbers means we're making up a budget on our best guess, our best assumptions, which could be wrong. So if we're overly conservative, we end up laying off people who shouldn't be laid off. None of them should, frankly. If we're under conservative, so to speak, or a little looser on our guidelines, maybe we don't lay off enough people, and now we have to change people's career paths in the fall, which isn't fair either. Either way, our kids hurt. So I'm hopeful our state will pass a budget in the next several weeks. We're on the clock. We have 28 days to pass a budget for next year.
Kenneth Gutman, the superintendent of the Walled Lake Schools, joining us on the MegaCast. I know we have protests. I know we have a coronavirus. I know we have issues that are, I'm sorry to say, more important to everyone listening right now. But that being said, schools are not going to get the money that they were planning on getting, and they've already spent. And to me, that seems to me like maybe the biggest story in the state of Michigan that isn't being reported, or I'm blowing it out of proportion. Which one is it, Ken?
So, well, it's being reported in some areas, but not often enough. And frankly, there are big issues around our state, but this is a huge issue. And the thought of us not having the money, and keep in mind, moving into I don't want to say post-COVID like it's a thing, but moving into this post-COVID environment, it will cost us more to run schools. You look at just providing PPE, it's a significant expense. And so we have a long way to go there. Now, to be able to do that with fewer resources, and also to finish the year unable to make payroll potentially, now we have a big issue. So,
right. So are you being an alarmist by saying that? Because I want to get back to this. Because, it's one thing to say we're going to have a tough budget next year. And that's all I was thinking about. But it became clear to me yesterday it's a much bigger issue. And it might come right down to, will school districts be able to make payroll for their final payrolls to the end of the year? Because the state's not going to be sending the money. You're at the very end of your budget year. There's not much more you can adjust. You cannot deficit spend. I don't know if you can accrue things into the next budget year or not, but I don't want to put you on the line, but I want to make sure that we're clear, Ken. Is it possible that some of the bills of some school districts may not get paid this spring?
I would hope not, but yes, it is. And you look there are districts in far worse condition than Walled Lake Schools and some of our other local districts. Yes, it's absolutely possible. Now, the conversations I've had with some of our local legislators have led me to believe they're doing everything they can to hold off on a proration this year, and that next year could be a really bad year for us. We're going to take this 1 week at a time, and we're hopeful that this year we're not cut. We know that we will be next year, but obviously we hope not, because next year our costs go up in all that we have to do in terms of social distancing and other health issues. So we're starting off the next several weeks hoping that we get a budget that doesn't cut us, a budget for next year and a budget for this year that doesn't cut us. And then we head into next year hoping that we're able to do what we need to do for our kids with fewer resources.
Ken Gutman, I just want to make sure I understand the language, and I'm not being an alarmist unless I need to be, and I think I might need to be now. But when you say the word proration as it relates to this year's, that doesn't give you the ability to take dollars that you would get from the state and accrue them forward or backward in any way. Can you explain what that word means as it relates to the budget, just so we're clear? Because the way I read it and see it in the limited time I've had to research this issue is you get money for this year, and that's money for this year, and then there's money for next year, and you were expecting this much money for the end of the year, and if it doesn't come, you still got to pay your bills or not, really. So am I missing it? Can you explain what that term means?
Yeah, you're not being an alarmist at all. So let's say that you had a mid-year proration. Let's say it happened in January, and say it's $200 per pupil. Well, you'll receive a prorated amount of that for the remainder of the year. So you'll receive less money for the next 5-6 months of our budget year. However, if we were to be prorated now, there's not enough time to make it kind of a low cut. It would be a massive cut that could impact payroll in a lot of places.
All right. Well, we should be seeing this on the front page of the Detroit News and the front page of the Free Press, and it's just something I didn't think about, and I'm concerned about it. Our thoughts are with all of the schools, and really with all the people that work for the school districts, and I hope it all comes together. There is money. The state has been allocated money from the federal government to help the state get through the coronavirus issue. But as I understand it, that money has to be spent on coronavirus COVID-19 matters. It cannot be spent on education. So we have a little bit of a crisis going on here. The only place I see a relief valve here is a federal government, and we're all asking, right? But again, am I missing anything, Ken Gutman?
No, looking at the state budget situation, absent an unrestricted federal bailout that allows money and directs it to public schools or schools in general, we're we're a little afraid of next year. We have a lot more work to do for our kids. We want our parents and our staff to feel safe in our buildings, and it's hard to do that when you have fewer resources.
All right, let's get on to a better subject. Sorry to
Okay.
dwell on that, but I just think it's so important, and I really wanted to chat with you about it. Graduation, what's going on at Walled Lake? We're seeing schools build various graduation plans. Do you have a plan yet?
We do. June 14th, we're going to have all of our students at actually, so there are two parts to this plan. Number one, we still have a graduation ceremony scheduled in the stadium at Eastern Michigan University. One of our high schools the evening or July 31st, two of our high schools on August 2nd. We don't know the likelihood that that will be permitted at that time. We do have classes far more than 100 and crowds far more than that as well. We fill a stadium for each of our commencements. So, but we're still hopeful to have those. On June 14th, we're going to have a drive-in graduation, big screen at our bus garage. Actually, we've got a great area there. We'll have a huge screen. It'll be broadcast on our local cable, I believe, or local radio station. That I don't have all the details on yet. But parents will drive in, graduates will sit in the car, and we have speeches and recordings and that sort of thing. We'll do all three on that day. We'll have them spaced out enough to make sure that everyone's safe, but no one will leave their car.
All right, Ken, very good. I appreciate your information. I'll call Judy Evola and just see if there's anything we can do to be of any help with your project. I'll give her a call later on today. I've been in touch with her a little bit, so good luck with all that.
Thank you, sir.
Our producers, in the notes they hand me every day, they do a great job. I never follow them, but they give me all these questions to ask you. They did suggest that I ask you about sports in the fall. Do you have any additional information about what you may be doing and what the MHSAA may be recommending? I mean, even today, groups of 100 are permitted. It's beginning to open up. Any plans, thoughts, insight?
Sure. So no insight, but thoughts. We do have some guidance from MHSAA, and we do have the guidance from the state that we're able to hold some outdoor types of practices with appropriate social distancing. And of course, we have a league, and of course, we'll have to have district policy on this. So we need to figure out where all of those intersect. And then there are the types of things we need to figure out. How do you run a football practice with social distancing? I don't know. So we have some challenges ahead of us. It would certainly be great to have athletics, and we would love to see that happen. We'd love to start having practices, but we're going to take a measured approach and make sure we get it right and err on the side of the safety of our coaches and our students and our parents before we do anything.
Ken Gutman, you're making news all over the place. Or I've just not seen this reported elsewhere. You're saying the state has said schools will be able to hold outdoor practices soon, or this summer, or leading into the fall season, one of those, and that is guidance from the state and the MHSAA?
It's guidance from the state. MHSAA has another set of rules that how you would go about that. But I believe it was in yesterday's executive order to allow outside activities. So
all right.
We're working to interpret that and again err on the side of safety for all.
Well, you're right. I mean, they have allowed outside gatherings right now in phase 4 of the opening of the state of Michigan, of gatherings of up to 100 people. You would assume that you'd be able to get 100 people together and hold a high school football or soccer or track and field practice outside, and everything will be okay. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully everything will work out. Mr. Gutman, anything else you want to add today? Anything else in your mind that we should know?
There's a lot on my mind, but you don't have that kind of time today. I just appreciate being here and having the opportunity to talk with you. Whenever you'd like to chat, I'm around, and we certainly appreciate our community. The support for our schools has been incredible. We appreciate you sharing all of our information with the community.
Well, actually, now I keep saying to all of our guests who I've gotten to know very well through the program over the past couple of months, when we can, we should get together for a cup of coffee. Now it's put up or shut up time, right?
Let's do that. Let's 6 feet apart and
yes.
chat.
Okay. Ken, thank you very much. We'll do that real soon. Good to talk to you, and thank you for your great partnership. And everyone at the Walled Lake Schools, we really have enjoyed working with you through this, and will continue to do so. And in particular, we thank you for providing so many viewers when we have your Facebook Live online. Lots of good information. Thank you, Ken Gutman, Superintendent of Schools, Walled Lake.